Hello, viewers. I'm SB.
And I'm Amabel.
It's all right. We all forget sometimes. And welcome to Amabel Goes to Forex School. We're taking a brief stop off here in Rise of Nations before we move on to sort of our next kind of larger thing. Really, I should have done this alongside Northgard and the other like short form Forex experiments, but I forgot. Simply, I forgot. So, Rise of Nations is kind of an interesting thing. It, if you played Age of Empires 2, and if you were into strategy games at this time, you did. Age of Empires 2 was like the biggest game in the world, biggest PC game in the world. Rise of Nations came out and felt like an obvious successor to what they were doing there. But while the Age of Empires games are pretty focused RTS games, Rise of Nations extends things in a little bit further out. So like Age of Empires 2 already had some kind of like research stuff in it where you would advance through a tech tree over the course of your RTS game, and that happens in RTSs, right? In StarCraft, you research better guns for your Marines or whatever. But Age of Empires 2 like stretched out a little bit more and sort of like broke it into this idea of like advancing through technological ages and thus getting access to new units and stuff in a very kind of 4X-y way. And then Rise of Nations pulls it just a little bit further and, more critically, adds those extra victory conditions that I think kind of push it over the line, even though this too is a real-time game. Also, Age of Empires 2 did have some, like in normal multiplayer matches, you just kill people to win, but it did have some modes that you could play in instead, like Wonder Race, where there were sort of alternate, like, quote unquote, internal victory conditions, and those things have become standard in Rise of Nations. So this game was the lead designer on this game is a guy named Brian Reynolds. And Brian Reynolds was the lead developer on Civilization 2 and Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri just before leaving Firaxis to found the studio that made this. So this is a 4X guy sort of branching off and seeing the things that are in Age of Empires 2 and thinking like we can bring that more in the direction of my expertise, right? So I'm just going to play a solo game. We're going to talk about Conquer the World campaigns a little bit afterward. Don't let me forget. But I'm just going to put us through a quick solo game here, and we're going to leave the difficulty on pretty low because I'm pretty bad at proper RTS games. And there's a lot of stuff going on here. There's a lot of stuff I'm gonna have to talk about while we're playing the RTS. So I might even take it down. We'll leave it on moderate. If I lose or whatever, it's fine. So you can see here.
You can be offensive.
Yes, you can select to be offensive. So some of the factions really gross caricatures. No, these are the factions are divided into factions that are good at different things here. You can see here the number of factions available is definitely more typical of a 4X than a real-time strategy game. And you can see every one of them has a sort of like a power that is actually several different like little changes. Russians have the power of the motherland, so attrition damage to enemy units in your territory is doubled, and you get extra national borders growth, and your spies are half price. And the Romans have the power of Caesar, which is about forts and heavy infantry, and you kind of get the idea, right? And you can see a lot of these factions being represented roughly the way they are represented in Civ.
Yeah.
The Nubians have the power of trade. The Japanese have the power of honor. Their injured units don't lose as much. All that kind of stuff. All the stuff you see in. Sorry, go ahead.
So how many factions are typical for an RTS?
Not
this
three,
many, but
4.
3 or 4. Okay, I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
I don't want to pigeonhole and be like, listen, the way Blizzard does it, but that is kind of the thing, right? It is kind of like the way Blizzard does it. You got your Warcrafts and your Starcrafts and whatnot, and and the new things that come out are mostly in that mold, right? What was that game that came out not that long ago? Storm something that Day 9 was hyping. That I believe has 3 or 4 factions, and that's pretty standard. You usually see a lot more sort of unit diversity. Like very often there will be no shared units at all. This is again going to take a pretty 4X kind of path where everybody gets the spearmen and the cavalry and the heavy cavalry, and in fact I believe there may not be any unique units in this game between the factions.
Did you know that every civilization had spearmen and cavalry?
Like, here's the thing about a spear. It's just like it's really easy and obvious to be like put murder thing on stick for longer murder. It's just a good idea. So without having a lot of sense of what's even good, let's say I want something kind of internal because that's what I'm mostly good at. Submarines and fire ships. Air units.
Do you want to pick a random economic one?
I'm thinking libraries and universities here. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay. All right.
No, you're right. Random economic. I hope it'll show us what we get. Like, show us what their power is. So there's a couple of different victory conditions available here. Like I said, there is, of course, the standard murder everybody victory condition. But you can also win in this game by controlling a large enough portion of the map, which is basically just a kind of a version of murder everybody. Or you can win the game by building enough wonders. Each of these sort of like great wonders of the world is worth a certain number of wonder points, with ones that come up in later eras being worth more. And if you construct 8 points worth of wonders, all the other players get a notification that they have, you will win if you are not reduced to less than 8 wonder points in the next 5 minutes or something. And they have that much time to fuck you up. That much time to find your wonders and destroy them or take them from you or whatever.
Right, because it is in real time. It's real time strategy.
Yes.
Not real turn strategy.
That's correct. So we got the Spanish. The map starts revealed. You start with an extra scout. That's crazy. And also other stuff's going on. So we have a scout here. Our scouts are a little bit less important on account of we don't need to reveal the map at all. So you can see our national borders here, this idea of our national borders that will grow outward naturally as we do things. We have an extra scout. Go get those ruins. Again, sending your scouts out to plunder ruins early, very kind of 4X-y. But it's very RTS in the sense that, like, to play this game correctly and be any good at it, you need to have like 600 workers going at all times, and it's a total micromanagement nightmare. There's an auto explore button, right? Yeah, you guys go around and look for stuff. I trust you. So you'll see there are some extra resource nodes here. We've got some amber. When we set up a merchant on this amber, it'll produce 10 wood and 10 money per tick, and also market prices will be adjusted by 10 points in our favor. That's pretty cool. I'm for the moment just kind of pumping out workers. We have a select idle citizen button, which is nice to just grab a worker. And you can see our resource pile in the upper left there. Right now we have food and wood and money, and we're producing those things at particular rates. We would love to be better at everything. We'd love to be better at knowledge. So let's talk about our library. Here in the library, you can learn various kinds of technologies. There are military, civic, commercial, and science texts, and you can see how much text is attached to each of these things. And once we have researched any 2 of them, we'll be able to move up into the classical age, then any 4 more beyond that to the medieval age, and then another 4 beyond that. And at some point, they start to require more and more advanced resources, right? Right now, I'm going to go for science first. we're just gonna try to get some of this stuff done. So we built some extra folks, and we have a lumber camp down here. These camps, you build them wherever, and they take advantage of all of a particular type of resource within a certain area, and then you can assign a number of people to work at them based on, based on how much of that thing there is to gather. Mathematics, you know what? Yeah, we're just gonna go hard science here. So these early researches are just costing like food and wood or food and wealth in the case of science, but eventually we're gonna start requiring knowledge, like actual research and stuff. And while we're waiting on that, we're going to build a temple. We have the ability to build a temple from our first mathematics research. Push into the classical age, so you can see all of this stuff is costing a considerable amount of food, which we're only able to get because we have so many people working on farms here. And you can see every player can see down here in the corner an indication of how much land everybody owns, what age everybody is in. So even if you don't have direct vision of other players, you have some sense of what they're up to and how you're sort of doing pace-wise. Yeah. So I'm going to build a mine next to this big old hill here, and we can get...
It did look like a slide.
Okay. All right. You get a couple of people working on that.
So I have a question if there's time for a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Did you say when this game came out?
This game came out in like 2003, I believe.
Okay. Because this art is...
So Alpha Centauri, Civ 2 is like 96, Alpha Centauri is like 2000, and I want to say Age of Empires 2 was like 1999.
Okay.
This art is...
I don't know. I'm not used to seeing games that look like this. The texture, all the grass, and it's kind of muddy, kind of...
Okay, I will say, so it is obviously sort of up-resed.
Okay.
Obviously it didn't originally project in 1920 by 1080. But this is not, I'm not playing like a super HD remaster or anything. It is just resolution up.
I guess I'm just used to a less like realistic art style to the games that you've been showing me.
Okay, yeah.
So
and that's definitely
really...
like part of it is like the way it looks is a dedication to being recognized as in the vein of Age of Empires. Like like they made it look like an Age of Empires game very much on purpose. So we're building our university here. We do need to start constructing some other stuff, so we can construct granaries to improve the output of our farms and farmers, lumber mills to improve the output of our woodcutters camps, and so on. I need commerce at the library to get a trader online. Let's get that. Once you built a university, universities can produce knowledge, but in order to produce knowledge, they need to be filled with scholars. The more scholars you have, the faster you knowledge. But scholars are made from wealth, and wealth is not a thing we actually have any income of right now. Amabel, how shall we resolve it? Well, I'll tell you how. We're going to learn some things about commerce and coinage and whatnot, and then we're going to build economic structures. Sure could use a market out here. And you can see the city has a sort of a natural, like, circular boundary.
Yeah.
But we cannot build anything beyond. I don't have even the technology necessary to build the most basic military structures, so I should probably work on that, just in case the AI decides to come over here and beat my ass. You can see on our map, purple is doing some stuff out here. Oh, and indeed we are being raided. Oh god. Amabel. There's so many guys.
There's a
Alarum!
lot of guys.
So I pulled all the citizens into the town hall, from whence they will fire arrows and stuff. You run away from these people. Quietly build a barracks in the distance. So his early units are not very good at destroying a city, but what they are doing a great job of right now is preventing me from doing economics. And you know, they'll kill the city eventually. They're getting there. The arrows, the small number of arrows that my citizens are able to fire out is not very impressive. We don't really have any defenses here. And then I'll like create some put out dudes. It's all right. We'll get them. Let's see here, units. But you get the idea, right? Like this is a.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can draw their attention away a little bit. The fact that our city's nameplate has to be visible at all times is actually a real pain in the ass. All right, we're starting to get their attention a little bit. Okay. The city is just, you know, it's in terrible shape. Back to work, everybody. And by back to work, I mean repair the city. All right, and you can see here we can upgrade from slingers to javelineers because we're an era 2 civilization, about to be era 3 civilization once we get our food and knowledge in the right place. And we're getting pretty close on both of those things. So there's just like a lot to manage. This is part of this game that I was never good at. Is it's just too damn much. And I should by now have at least one additional city up. I should by now have, you know, more resource incomes in general.
Yeah.
But it's a lot. It's a lot to manage. So let's get all my units together over here. A computer player reached the medieval age before I did. And it's very disappointing. I assure you, I'm humiliated. So... No. So we're going to construct another city. This will help push our national borders out, help us grab other resources, and also give us the ability to build more things. Because, like, you can only have one temple per city. You can only have one library per city. So if you want to increase your rate of knowledge output, you have to grab more cities. And cities can only be so close to each other. So you end up, you know, having to take more territory. Got our first infantry unit up here. Let me build us another. Okay, so yeah, sorry, I feel like I'm talking about this in a very sort of scattered way, but it's because it's hard for me to keep track of everything that's going on.
Because it's an RTS.
Because it's an RTS, and I'm not good at. You know how my attention is.
Yeah. How do people learn these things? Like, do they tutorialize much?
There is a tutorial, but the answer is mostly, you know, get in there and do it. Do it until you're good at it. Let's go set up a merchant at that amber. Once we have more than one city up, we'll be able to run trade routes between our cities, which will help generate wealth. Indeed, we have settled Pamplona, and with the settling of Pamplona comes the opportunity for more farms, comes the opportunity for more growth. And so, like, all RTS games are kind of are economic games, in addition to being, you know, fighting games. You do not win a game of StarCraft by being the best at Marines. You win a game of StarCraft by being the best at SCVs, you know? And that's an oversimplification, but it's not too much of an oversimplification. And that's the stuff I have trouble with. Is just like the keeping all the workers running, and I do not run the tightest ship in the universe.
Those resource
So you can
gains,
see here
those
the
are
trader
per
is
minute?
Yeah, I think so. The trader is automatically forging a road
Okay.
between the two cities. Okay. We have an idle worker. We do. Let's build ourselves a senate. You know, a little bit of wood and a little bit of wealth will get you a government. Just like in the real world. All right, with commerce level 3, we can increase our commerce limit. You can see here, this is the maximum rate at which any resource can be coming in. Sort of a logistical limit on how fast we can process incoming resources.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and it's an interesting idea at the very least. So what do you think about like this idea, the real-time 4X kind of thing? And again, these are designed to be played in much shorter periods, right? A game of this is not gonna run you 10 hours.
Right. I don't know. For me, like, the 4Xs generally feel like they would still be, for me, pretty overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much going on. You add the time pressure to that, it's... You know, I have a friend named Erin, and she often talks about fighting games as being like chess.
Uh-huh.
The thing is, with chess, I don't lose because I took more than 1/60th of a second to make a decision. And I can't... Like, yeah, this absolutely would be faster, but I feel like the stress of it, gosh.
Yeah.
But I wonder if perhaps the turn-based nature of 4X games, along with the level of the number of systems, is part of what makes them take so long. You know? I mean, I still think if you had a way to reduce the number of decisions you're making per turn, you could have a turn-based 4X game that has depth, but here, like, your ability to make decisions is limited by your body, and I don't know. I'm slow at decisions. You know?
Yeah. And to talk about like physical limitations, like it might sound a little bit silly if you're not familiar, but like if you, for example, have ever been into, say, competitive StarCraft, like Brood War, you know, the best Brood War players in the world would maintain, you know, a several hundred actions per minute over the course of a match. And it was a serious physical problem where like Brood War pros blow out their wrists and have to get surgeries, and like I have never in my life been fast enough to be good at these games in any real way. So based on the sort of like level of your civilization, you know, you can continue to pursue upgrades. Okay, there are unique units here. We have a Spanish unique heavy infantry unit here, the Royal Scutari. Powerful, slow, extremely effective against mounted troops. So they're around. They're maybe a little bit less like significant in terms of like they're not called out as cleanly. We also have governments. This is how this game handles governments. So you build yourself a senate, and then you first have a choice between despotism and republic. Republic increases your commerce limit, while despotism reduces the cost of military research and building units in the barracks. And then for each government, there is a patriot who he's like the general for your armies, and he has different powers. So like if we research Republic here, we're gonna get hold on a second, what did it say? We're gonna get the Senator, a general who provides healing, bribing, and building defense bonuses. And that's just a unit that you can actually like apply to your sort of attach to your armies, and he has a radius around him in which his effects occur. And then, you know, later on, once you're in the gunpowder age, you can switch to either monarchy or democracy. And then in the industrial age, of course, socialism versus capitalism.
Uh-huh.
Do you want the CEO patriot or the comrade patriot? So that's sort of I think sort of a mixed up kind of.
Man, I would love to. I mean,
so there's like when you're talking about these games in particular, they're trying to compress things, right, in a way that's because we're trying to jam it all into a thing that you can process and make use of within an hour, while you're also doing 14 other things. So, you know, they know it's less, but it's weird for sure.
I would love to have just one historical 4X that isn't so fucking lib-brained. Like, do you have communism or capital? Fuck you. That's.
What's your specific of like what do you want to see?
I want like a really legit leftist agitprop historical 4X.
Yeah, but I'm gonna build the Coliseum.
Look at that cool fan. Oh, Coliseum. Okay.
Fan.
Looks like a big fan.
I'm building a wonder.
Okay.
So you can assign multiple workers to work on a thing, and they will get it done faster. So you can see here the wonder menu. The various wonders, you know, they all do different things. Like I said, early game wonders are worth fewer wonder points, but that doesn't necessarily make them like less powerful. And especially because these games are self-reinforcing resource loops. You know, obviously a wonder that does something cool in the early game, like increase your commerce limit or let you have more population. Obviously, it can result in big end game advantages. All right, we have produced a city. So let's just go and build some farms. Every city can support 5 farms, I believe. The Seneca has become a democracy. Well, we'll show them. We'll probably also do that. Yeah, that'll get them. And so yeah, we don't need to like play out a whole game of this necessarily. You can see the Turks lost their capital, and so they are on a timer. If they can't reclaim their capital within a certain amount of time, they'll be eliminated. And everybody is aware of that. And there's I do want to say like there's good automation functionality. Like you can see I built those farms, then I produced these people, and the people are smart enough to know, oh, there's an idle farm nearby, I should go work that immediately. You know, but at this I don't know if there's a lot of necessarily a lot more here to see or explore as far as the mechanics go. You've kind of seen how the basics of this stuff work. One thing that this game was noted for was the idea of attrition damage. So when traveling through enemy territory, if unsupplied, your units will just take damage being in enemy territory, and there are various factors that affect how much that is true, and you can build supply units to to sort of like back your guys up, and the supply units also help with your siege units, and you know, so there's something going on there.
I think that's interesting because in my space, the historical board game space, you'll typically see this, like there'll be attrition checks for units that and supply status will mitigate or prevent attrition from happening. And that's because we're looking at units in a very you don't have a lot of range with the unit. It can be at full health, it can be at half health, it can be dead, and that's it. So
Yeah.
it's so surprising to me that in a computer game where you could track each unit's health,
And do.
okay, well that guy's gone. Where I almost would want to see a system where you are always taking attrition, but supply mitigates it. Because especially for like an army on the march, like desertion is a big deal. Disease is a big deal. Like in a lot of, especially you're talking about when you're talking about warfare before the development of germ theory and the cleanliness that results from that. You have a lot of wars where most casualties are just people like getting diarrhea and shitting themselves to death.
Yeah.
Stuff ripping through the camp like that. And I would think that a computer program that can track all these things, that can do it in the background, would be like a great opportunity to show that, to model that, and you could have compelling decisions around that.
Yeah, but again, you have to be thinking here about compression, right?
Right. That's true.
Because the system has to remain legible immediately to the human beings who have to actually play the video game.
So you say that, but this is not particularly legible to me.
Well, okay, I'm able to follow it at least. If not to actually like do a good job of it, I can at least tell what's happening for the most part.
Something we talked about before
look, attrition damage. Oh no! My
health. Get him.
It's red and it's glowing.
Something we talked about before is, look, all I'm saying is in that wrestling game, it can track how often you need to go poop. It should be able to do that here.
You are not comparing Rise of Nations to M. Dickey's Wrestling Empire right now. I know that that's not what I'm hearing.
But we talked before about how 4X games, they're video games, but they're a kind of board game.
Well,
or they have board game concerns.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Okay, but do you feel that RTS games have similar concerns, or does the real-time nature of it really prevent it from having a board game feel?
Soothed. Look at how soothed they are. So check this out. I'm gonna go fuck up these pyramids. So you can kind of give your units like simple formations and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Siege weapons have to set up before they can fire. We gotta like take them out of move mode and. And obviously the siege weapons are hugely powerful at destroying buildings. This is the thing that really differs from 4X and from 4X game to 4X game is like how much do you like need your siege weapons? How much are they a nice thing to have? And how much are they absolutely necessary? Alright, so we finished another wonder, and we're building stuff, and we're like trying to keep up with the technology, and all this stuff has hotkeys, and I'm not using them because I don't know what they are. I didn't want to like spend a bunch of time practicing or anything, you know?
Yeah. What is a hotkey?
That's like the key you press to jump to, like L selects the library.
Oh, okay.
Did you see I'm like scrolling around and clumsily clicking on things? And...
Yeah.
Alright, so we've defeated the city of Ganog.
You are under attack by Seneca.
and then I can run an infantry unit into it and capture it. Wait, is that the right kind of? Yeah. So now we've taken control of the city, sort of. It's assimilating, and if we remain in control of it for a certain amount of time, it'll flip. And again, this is a very sort of 4X-y idea. This is a much different than generally in an RTS. All you're doing to your enemies' buildings is just burning them the fuck down. And you can see it's extended our national border, and it's peeled back his national border, and yeah, all this stuff that's happening. Anyway, like honestly, this is kind of all I wanted to show you. I've spent a lot of time playing this game. You can see here he has constructed a fortress, which is going to impede our progress somewhat, but we are going to be able to avoid it on our way over to Toronto. You can also see that our units have sort of charged off. Your units will definitely just like kind of run off and fight whoever if you're not careful. Get him. Get that guy. Yeah, got him. It turns out cannons are superior to men. But don't say that on Twitter. You'll get so many people in your mentions. All right, that's...
Why did he on Twitter?
That's a fair point. Yeah, that's just this thing. Like I said, I should have thrown it in with like Northgard and them.
That's amazing. That's green.
I should have thrown it in with Northgard and them because it is really like one of those games. But yeah, that's Rise of Nations. That's what a map of Rise of Nations is like. So
okay,
it also has this Conquer the World campaign mode, which is the main way that I played the game back when I was into it in the early 2000s, where it's basically like it's sort of Risk, but
okay.
You know, each time you move into a territory, you play a map of Rise of Nations to conquer the territory. Again, we're not going to get like way deep into a thing, but like we'll just like.
Napoleon Bonaparte was one of the greatest generals in the history of the world. This poor Corsican officer proved that the great kings of Europe could be dethroned.
So quiet.
I have no idea why that's so quiet.
Is an evil genius by many. When his armies swarmed across Europe, they left behind them the same republican ideals that had sparked the French Revolution. Follow in his footsteps or forge your own path as you attempt to conquer the world.
So yeah, you get your Horse Guard Grenadiers and your Imperial Guard here. A couple unique units, of course. The French unique powers, and like I said, it is very much sort of a Risk kind of vibes here. Click an army and then click a place to attack that place, and it might get reinforcements from another place, and you acquire resources and wonders and you hold on to them to some degree. And when I say it's Risk-like, I mean down to the fact that you are acquiring bonus cards that you can play to boost your attacks in places. To be perfectly honest, this is like one of my favorite single-player RTS modes. I like the story campaigns of the Blizzard games a lot. Certainly, you know, I played through the Warcraft 3 and StarCraft stories and everything, but I really like this. It's just like a pure gameplay kind of thing. But yeah, so that's Rise of Nations. I think that's kind of the idea. Amabel, do you have any thoughts on this? And sort of like this trend of sort of real-time 4Xs and the several of these that we've looked at.
Yeah, I mean, they seem like they're too complicated for me. I'll say that the Dune one had more of my interest than this or Northgard did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't have any real strong, compelling thoughts about it. That Risk mode seemed cool. That seemed like a cool thing to do.
Okay. Yeah, I think that I think that a place where these kind of run into trouble audience-wise is just that a lot of the audience for 4X games is looking for kind of a chilled experience.
Okay, that makes sense.
And so when you put it into you know, high octane control 200 units at 400 APM for 45 minutes or whatever mode, you're shedding a lot of the core audience. And we talk sometimes about how like 4X is not a big genre. Like a lot of people have played Civ and will play a Civ, but aside from that, 4X is not a big genre. But honestly, RTS is probably even smaller.
Okay.
So yeah, I think that's going to be it for this episode. This sort of a brief little aside before we start digging into some other stuff. We got some plans. So come back next week for the next class. Amabel, you graduated. You're moving up.
What?
It's 201s when we come back on Monday. So come back for that, and we'll see you then.